I just wanted to thank you all for being here and supporting this really important project. This has been years in the making. Still with us, Stories of HIV, AIDS and Dance in Canada has been an ongoing project with Christopher House as the lead researcher. We have developed a research collection. We have published this book. There are other facets of the project ongoing, so there's more to come. This is a really special book, a very beautifully made book, and as our co-founder Miriam Adams always says, a book will outlive us all. So it's there on the shelves for the duration. I wanted to take a moment to thank our public funders. We're very lucky in Canada that we have public subsidy and that it, for the most part, operates arm's length from government. So I wanted to thank the Canada Council for the Arts, the Toronto Arts Council, the Ontario Arts Council, the Ontario Arts Foundation, as well as the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council, which it has funded in partnership with the University of Waterloo a vast majority of the funds required to make this project happen, as well as Canadian Heritage. Another SHRC-funded project that has contributed to this, the entire Still With Us project is Gatherings, Archives, and Oral Histories of Performance. And both DCD and the Theatre Museum are partner organizations for that. I want to thank Dr. Susan Roy, who is our partner at the University of Waterloo, and Jay Rankin, who is a project manager for Still With Us. Unfortunately couldn't be here tonight, but he has done the lion's share of the project management for this, as well as DCD staff, Beth Kelly and Josh Murphy, who did a tremendous work on the photographic permissions research and finding photos for this publication. The staff of the Theatre Museum, who as always have been brilliant in making this event happen, and we are always grateful to them and our partnership with them. And all of the contributing authors to this project. There are some beautiful anecdotes, there are incredible essays and reflections and poetry in this book that are so meaningful and so beautiful. It's hard to get through this book without tearing up, I have to say, for my own part. Our designer, Lisa Kiss. Lisa, where are you? Lisa did a tremendous job, so devoted to this project, and the product just reflects her incredible design skills and just vision for things, the things that Miriam and I nerd out over, like paper quality and the richness of the inks and you know, stitched signatures. And of course, thank you to Seika Boye, who is a contributor and is also moderating our conversation tonight. And of course, Assistant Editor John Davies and Editor Christopher House, to whom this project belongs.
Good evening, everyone. It's wonderful to see so many of you here to celebrate the launch of this book and to hear from Editor Christopher, Assistant Editor John, and Amy about working on this book and what it's meant to them. So we'll dive right in. And Christopher, I had the opportunity this afternoon to read your beautiful introduction. And for those of you who haven't had that chance, can you tell us about why this book and when did you start thinking about a book project?
I mean, I think the project came about when I saw your project about the history of Black dance in Canada and the elements of erasure that exist within all of those stories. And I recall making it just a very offhand comment to Amy at an event somewhere, I can't remember exactly when. Yeah, the Hall of Fame, maybe, and thinking that it would be really interesting at some time for someone to do a project about the impact of HIV in Canadian dance.
And as you were working and started doing archival research, oral history interviews, what came up for you that informed the format of this book? It has so many thoughtful sections. The design has beautifully brought the many aspects of this work together. Can you talk about how what you found informed the format of the book?
The thing that happened first was the idea of an exhibition, and the exhibition began to grow in all kinds of different directions, and because I had absolutely no experience as a curator, I just started to sort of wrestle with this idea of including stories within an exhibition itself, and was advised, of course, that we couldn't have like 17 videos with oral histories running because people just wouldn't have the time to do it. And then I ran into a beautiful publication that was done for a project called Lost and Found, which is about the downtown dance scene in New York City in the 80s, in essence, which was a community that was completely obliterated by HIV. And it was a performance project, and the format of the book had some similarities to this. It's exactly the same size. It had a sort of more informal zine format because it focused very specifically on a smaller group of artists, and the reach of this project is national and international, actually. But the deeper I got into the research for the exhibition, the more I started to think I wish that we were just making a book. So that was a turning point, and what was initially supposed to be a catalog, I began to push harder and harder to make into a standalone publication that would have space for all of these stories and would allow us to commission essays. And this is when John and I began to speak together about the format the book would take.
And I'll ask you to elaborate a little more on the sections that are in the book, starting, for example, with the memory garden. And when you say these stories, can you tell us about whose stories are in the book?
So I say in the introduction that we identified probably 70 people whose lives were impacted, who lived with HIV. And I would say 95% of them are no longer with us. The really beautiful thing for me about the project, and this is not exactly answering your question, it was discovering very quickly that the information was stored in these very deep recesses in people's hearts and subconscious. I mentioned in the introduction, often I approached people that I wanted to speak to, and people would say, well, I really don't have anything to say, or would often say, I don't want to talk about it. The people that had nothing to say, who kindly agreed to have a coffee, it would start, and 90 minutes later we would still be talking, and usually we were in tears at that point. And for many of the people that didn't want to speak about it, they, a month, 2 months, sometimes a year later, got in touch and said that they would like to talk to me. So just the very nature of the project happening was an opening for people to revisit an incredibly challenging moment in their lives. And I use the image just trying to open scar tissue on the heart.
Thanks, Christopher. And one more question before we move on to John. After the memory garden and the people that the book is remembering, there are also reflections, and you asked a number of different people to write, to contribute to this book. How did those invitations come about, and why was that important in addition to the stories of the individual people the book is remembering?
Yeah, that's a great question. The stories are included because pretty quickly it became obvious to me that the truth of this historical time could really only be understood through this sort of rhizomatic, kaleidoscopic, through a number of real points of view about real people. And there were many themes that emerged from the collection of those stories that, for example, stigma and shame specific to different communities, the impact of becoming HIV positive at a time when the stigma is very different because it's no longer, people don't want to touch you, but you're judged because you did something unethical in not protecting yourself. These are very complex stories, and inviting experienced writers, mostly, and a number of academics, such as yourself, I also knew was a chance for me to learn more about what I was trying to puzzle out as a non-academic.
Thanks, Christopher. It's a lot to hold on to. And as you said, you invited John into the process to help with the editing. John, as you were working on editing these works and holding on to the big picture with Christopher as it developed, what came up for you? What surprised you? What felt challenging in terms of putting this together into a single book that we can hold on to?
I think there's just an enormous sense of kind of responsibility to a community or to a kind of world of overlapping communities. And, you know, I think I really appreciated your essay almost having like a kind of mentorship conversation with Christopher about the enormous responsibility of archives and the emotion of archives. And so it made sense to kind of bring that early in the book to kind of set the table. But it really felt like the project was responding to the needs of the community and almost has like a therapeutic kind of function. And I came in kind of as an outsider. My background's in film studies, visual arts, sexuality studies, and I think I could be kind of an inside-outside reader in a way, and think about how, you know, these dance archives are so fragile and so ephemeral, and so I didn't get to see any of these dances, I didn't get to see any of these performances, and so how do we kind of communicate them to readers who don't know about these artists? And you know, we do it through stories and through the images. And so, yeah, just being involved in the editorial side, in kind of figuring out these pillars of these longer essays and then these shorter and medium length pieces. You know, it was just like, yeah, a really wonderful experience, and I really just tried to kind of be there as like a support and sounding board for Christopher. And then it was such a joy to see all of a sudden these dozens of images arrive and the visual side of it come in, you know, and you know, I think it really pulls everything together in such a beautiful way.
Absolutely, and to have beautiful color images and so many of them, it's expensive to publish a book with a lot of images in it, and so it's a gift, and I think an important honoring that it does contain the visual memories. John, I'm throwing a question at you that wasn't in our email thread. For all of the dancers in the room, as an outsider in terms of discipline, what did you learn about dance and dance communities through working on this book? and through your conversations with Christopher?
I mean, really just, okay, let me frame it this way. I feel like a lot of my peers are very critical about how AIDS has and is being remembered, and are very much emphasize the ongoingness of HIV and AIDS. And I think with this project, it was really, the focus was so much about kind of speaking for the first time and really like dealing with the stigma and the shame and kind of meeting the community and its specific needs and history kind of where it was. And so I think there's just something very kind of special about that relationship. But then also the ongoingness of HIV and AIDS just was hit home so violently with the second Trump administration and the kind of immediate gutting of USAID and threats to the PEPFAR program. And just this, you couldn't have a more visceral reminder of the current situation and crisis of HIV and AIDS around the world than that. So that I think was very, to have that happen during the editing of the book, it's like, okay, we have to address this. And I just want to say I'm really proud of the roundtable of younger dancers and choreographers, and just kind of looking to the future and kind of bridging the archive in the past with the present and future is a really strong function of the book, I think.
As a visual art historian, what stands out to you about this is a dance history that's different from writing and reading and thinking about visual artists?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's just the importance of narrative, of reminiscence, of memory, of kind of conjuring, like through words. Like it's so valuable as a way of like recreating this time-based medium and this live medium. And I think that's all, there's so many discussions about the title and where we land with the title, and I think we really, it captures everything, I think.
The title's beautiful. And is active. It is like a dance remembering, right? It's beautiful. Amy, for you, thanks, John. This book is a little different or very different from other DCD publications, and it's a cultural history. So it's holding a dance history, but a second history and timeline is also part of the book project. What did it mean to publish this book, and what did it mean to also take on the responsibility of telling this about this ongoing difficult time through dance?
Yeah. Well, I think part of the motivation for this entire project, book included, is I'm a proud mom, capital P proud, and I wanted my sons to know about this history. It's not just the dance history, it's not just the queer history, it's history that all of us should know. And they should know about the generations of people who fought to make sure that AIDS research was happening, so that as they enter a world where HIV is not the death sentence that it once was, or where they've grown up in a place where the pride flag is flown outside their school every June, they're also still in a world where homophobia still exists. And they're in a world, as John mentioned, where changes in government can change that whole situation for queer people. And so it was partly for them to make sure that generation was aware, but also, we're already in an ephemeral art form, and the archives of it, holding that memory, establishing legacy is so important. And this book has brought, Christopher, in all of his conversations, uncovered so many people that neither of us had ever heard of, who had been lost to this terrible disease. And now there's some legacy for them. Now there is some memory for them. And as Christopher also points out, there's also all those people who will never be named because of the stigma and the shame and the hiding that was done by families. So this is just like one way that we can contribute to establishing that legacy, remembering these artists and their contributions, and creating something for future generations to know that this happened, this is how it affected our community, this is how our community reacted to it, the kind of activism through the Dancers for Life concerts and you know, all of those kinds of advocacy efforts that happened.
Thanks, Amy. And do you have a favorite part of the book? I mean, like, we can nerd out for a minute in terms of what's there, the sections, the design, but what do I want to ask? How does the design really come together for you in terms of holding on to all it holds?
Right. It's a very special book. It's a special book in the sense that it is in color, and which is very, as you mentioned, expensive. We have never done a book in color before because the cost is prohibitive. But it's an artifact unto itself that will be around for generations, and it's. I think the beauty of the actual product pays homage to all those people who lost their lives. It says, you matter, and this is how we want to remember you. But also the stories and the reflections that John and Christopher have gathered are tremendous. Brian Webb's poem, I cannot get through without crying. It's just, I met Bill during the Canada Dance Festival years when he would come out with Brian, and he was lovely, and like so many others. So that's one, but the whole thing as a package and just the different reflections are just so powerful and so thoughtful, and yeah, I'm very proud of it. I'm very proud that we've been able to do it, and it is our 44th book in 40 years of history. And yay for dance publishing, because it is like the opposite of lucrative. But we do it anyway.
Yay for DCD and yay for dance publishing always. Christopher, to finish off, how does it feel now that this book is in the world?
I mean, it feels amazing. Yeah, I mean, I think Amy mentioned earlier, it's a book. It's an artifact, it exists. And I feel like, I mean, any second now the internet is going to go down and all of that information is lost. But I'm not joking. Sorry. But this is here, and it can be hidden somewhere until people with more sense appear on the face of the planet again, and then they figure out what those strange little symbols mean. I want to say two things quickly. We've been talking about how great Lisa's design is. I just want to say that Lisa she's an amazing designer. She was an active collaborator in making this book happen. This book would not exist anywhere near this way without Lisa's commitment to the project, her curiosity about it, her knowledge, and her desire to make the best possible book. So let's give a big hand to Lisa. And I would like to draw everyone's attention to Madame Nicole Boye, who is here, has come from Trenton. The title of the exhibition, Nicole, could you step forward? Would you mind? I would really appreciate this. The title of the exhibition comes from a conversation that I had with Nicole about her daughter, Patricia, who contracted HIV in the Red Cross blood scandal in 1985. And Nicole spoke incredibly generously about Patricia's journey, her very brave journey. And there's quite a lot written about Patricia in the book. And in speaking about Patricia's story, Nicole said to me, she's still with us. And I thought that was perfect. So,
I think that's a beautiful place to end our conversation, but we have the space for another half an hour. Congratulations and thank you to you all. This is an incredible accomplishment and a big responsibility to take on. These invitations that you made to people to share their stories, whether they responded or not, resulted in their private reflections, even if they didn't have conversations, in delayed conversations and ongoing conversations. So thank you for taking that on to share with all of us. And John, thank you for all of your work. And Amy, as always, for all of your work. Thanks everyone for coming this evening. And